Morning, Year 9. I'm going to run through the questions that I set for you as preparation for your assessment on Wednesday and Thursday. So you can access these questions on Show My Homework. It's a downloadable document that I put at the bottom of the homework. So just click on the link and you can access these questions. Question 1. Write 2 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3 as an ordinary number. 2 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3 is in standard form. So this is in standard form. Now remember, standard form is a number between 1 and 10 multiplied by 10 to the power of something. So we've got the number in standard form and we want to write it as an ordinary number instead. So here on the right, I have created my own place value chart just to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing. You don't have to do this in the exam. However, I'm just using it because I think it's easier to work with. So we start off with 2. I'm going to write 2 in the ones column. And what I have to do is multiply 2 by 10 to the power of 3. Now when we're multiplying by powers of 10, all we have to do, if the power is positive, we move the 2, that number of places to the left. But if the power was negative, we'd move 2 to the right. Now, the 3 is positive, so we're moving the 2 3 places to the left. So we're going to start with the 2's in the 1's column now. We're going to move it 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So the 2 goes from the 1's column to the thousands column, and my new number is 2,000. All right, fill in the gaps with zeros. So 2 times 10 to the power of 3 is equal to 2,000, which is its ordinary number form. Question 2, I've got 3 numbers here and I have to write them in ascending order. Now ascending means smallest to largest. So we start off with the smallest and go to the largest. So I've got 2 in standard form and I've got 1 in ordinary form. What I would suggest first is changing the number that's in ordinary form into standard form. All right, so we're going to write 9,812 into my place value chart. I've written another one down for question 2. So 9,812. All right. Now, I am doing the opposite from what I was doing in question 1. I was given it in standard form and I had to create it, the ordinary form of the number. In this question, I'm given the ordinary form and I have to change it into standard form. How to do that is, I want to move the 9 backwards so much so that it's now in the 1's column. All right, so my number between 1 and 10 is going to be 9.812. So all I have to ask myself, now I've got my number between 1 and 10 from this, should be 9.812. That's a number between 1 and 10. Now I have to ask myself, how many places do I have to move this backwards to get to the 1's column? So I have to move the 9, 1, 2, 3 steps backwards to get to the 1's column. So that means that 9,812 can be written in standard form as 9.812 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3. All right, because when we start here at 9.812, I have to move the 9, 1, 2, 3 places to the left to get to 9,812. So that is 9,812 can be written as 9.812 times 10 to the power of 3. Okay, so I'm going to write this in here, 9.812 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3. So now I've got the 3 numbers in the question are all in standard form. Now, when we're comparing numbers with standard form, it's always looking firstly at the power. Now, if the power is greater, then it'll be a bigger number. So here you've got 9.812 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3, and you've got 9.82 multiplied by 10 to the power of 2, and 9.81 multiplied by 10 to the power of 1. So, and out of those 3 numbers, this is the number with the greatest power of 10. So that's going to be the biggest. So we're going to write this one at the end because it's smallest to largest. So 9.812 multiplied by 10 to the power of 3 is the largest. The second largest will be 9.82 multiplied by 10 to the power of 2 because 10 to the power of 2 is bigger than 10 to the power of 1. So write that here, 9.82 multiplied by 10 to the power of 2. And finally, the smallest one is 9.81 multiplied by 10 to the power of 1. And that is it in order. That's the smallest, that's the middle, and that's the largest. Question 3. We have to write 360,000 in standard form. So again, I've written out my place value chart, and I'm going to put 360,000 into it. So 3 goes in the 100,000s column, 6 goes in the 10,000s column, and then I've got the rest as zeros. So my new number has to be between 1 and 10 firstly. So to put this between 1 and 10, I have to move the 3 back into the 1s column, and the 6 goes into the 10ths column. So I'm looking for 3.6 multiplied by 10 to the power of something. So my answer is going to be 3.6 multiplied by 10 to the power of something. We have to work out what that 10 to the power of something is. And to work that out, I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps back to get to 1. So it's going to be 10 to the power of 5. And we can check this. Look, the 3's in the 1's column. If I move it 5 places to the left, it should get 360,000. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right. Because I would move the 6 as well 5 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the 6 is now in the 10,000s column. So 3.6 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5 is 360,000 in standard form. Question 4, 9.2 multiplied by 10 to the negative 3. We have to write that as an ordinary number. All right, so we start off with 9.2. And then we have to multiply by 10 to the negative 3. Now remember, when we were multiplying by a positive power, we're moving everything to the left. Because the power is negative, we're moving everything to the right. So we have to move the 9 3 places to the right. So it goes 1, 2, 3. So I have to write my 9 now goes in the thousandths column. And my 2 will go 1, 2, 3 places into the 10,000ths column. And I fill my gaps in with 0. So 0.0092 should be the answer. 0.0092. Question 5 is asking us, by rounding each number to the nearest 10, estimate the value of 31 times 18. So we have to round 31 and 18 to the nearest 10. So 31 to the nearest 10 is 30. And 18 to the nearest 10 is 20. If you want to double check that, if we write out a number line, here is 30. And there is 40. 35 would be in the middle and 31 would be here. So you can see 31 is clearly closer to 30 than it is to 40. And then for 18, the two 10s, it's closest to is 10 and 20. Here is 15. And you'd say 18 would be around here. So it's clearly closer to 20 than it is to 10. So it's going to be 30 times 20. Now, remember, this won't be a calculator. You might get this in a non-calculator paper, but that's okay. Remember what I've shown you before. If you can't work out 30 times 20 immediately, start off with, strip it back to the very bottom. So let's say it's 3 multiplied by 2. And we know 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. Now, if we know that, we can work out what 30 times 2 is, because we're just multiplying by 10. We're multiplying the 3 by 10, so the answer we multiplied by 10. So 30 times by 2 is going to be 60. Then we're going to multiply the 2 by 10. So 30 times 20 must be 600. All right, so each time I'm just multiplying one of the numbers by 10 and therefore multiplying my answer by 10. So we start with 3 multiplied by 2, which is 6. Then the 3 multiplies by 10 to make it 30 times 2, and that's going to be 60. And then we multiply the 2 by 10 to get 30 times 20, and then we multiply that answer by 10 to get 600. So the answer here, the estimate is 600. Question 6, I have to round 2.84 to 1 decimal place. Decimal places were one of the first topics we did this year. So if we're rounding to 1 decimal place, let's write out our decimal first, 2.84. Now, if we're rounding to 1 decimal place, we draw a line after the first decimal place, and then we are checking our second decimal place to see whether we round up or stay the same. Now, if the second decimal place is below 5, the 8 will stay the same. If the second decimal place is 5 or above, we'd round the first decimal place up to a 9. Now, 4 is below 5, so 2.84 to 1 decimal place is just 2.8 to 1 decimal place. Question 7 is another estimation question. It's saying, rounding each number to the nearest 10, estimate your answer to 78 multiplied by 11.6 divided by 39. 78 is closest, 10 is 80. 11.6, its closest 10 is just 10. And 39, its closest 10 is 40. And if we draw these out in number lines, you can see that again. So here is 70 and 80. 75 is in the middle, and 78 would be here. So 78 is clearly closest to 80. And then for the second one, for 11.6, the two tens it's between is 10 and 20. And 15 goes in the middle. And 11.6 would be about here. You can see it's closer to 10. And finally, the two tens, the 39 is between is 30 and 40. And in the middle of those is 35. And 39 would be here. It's clearly closer to 40. So those are all of the numbers rounded to the nearest 10. Now, we can do the multiplication first. So if 80 times 10, if you don't know how to do 80 times 10, start off with 8 times 10, which is 80, and then 80 times 10. All we've done here is multiply the 8 by 10, so the answer is going to be multiplied by 10. So it's going to be 800. So this is equal to 800 over 40. So it's 800 divided by 40. 800 comes from the 80 times by 10. So let's work this out using bus stop method. All right. How many 40s can I get into 8? I can't get any in, so it's 0. And then I carry the 8 over, so that 0 becomes 80. How many 40s can I fit into 80? You can fit 2 40s into 80 with 0 remainders, and then you can't fit any 40s into 0. So my answer is 20. Question 8. 6.2819, I have to round that to 2 decimal places. So let's do this again. So we've got 6.28, and I'll draw my vertical line after the second decimal place because I'm rounding to 2 decimal places. 19. Now I'm only checking the third decimal place. I'm not checking the fourth one. You only check the one immediately after the number of decimal places you want to round to. So if I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, I'm checking the third decimal place to see whether I round up or I stay the same. Now remember, the answer is either going to be 6.28 or 6.29. It's going to be 6.28 if the third decimal place is below 5. And if the third decimal place is 5 or above, we'd round up to 6.29. The third decimal place is 1, so it's below 5. So our answer is going to be 6.28 to 2 decimal places. Remember, you've got in your answer, if it's asked for 2 decimal places, make sure there are only 2 numbers after the decimal point in your answer. Otherwise, it won't make sense. Question 9, we're asked this time to round to one significant figure. Each of these numbers in the problem, and estimate the answer. So 78 multiplied by 11.6 divided by 391. So we have to round all of these numbers firstly to one significant figure. So let's start off with 78. So significant figures start from the first non-zero number, so that's 7. So after the 7 we draw a vertical line and we're going to check the second value. Now, if the significant figures work similarly to decimal places, because if this 8 is 5 or more, then we round the 7 up to 8. And if the second significant figure is less than 5, then 7 would stay the same. All right. Because this second significant figure is 5 or more, then we round the 7 up to 8, and the answer will be 80. All right, 80 to one significant figure. The reason why you have to have the reason why you have to write a 0 in is because if you wrote any other number, that would count as a significant figure, whereas 0 is not a significant figure. So 78 is closest to 80, and that is only got one significant figure. Any zeros at the end don't count. So this number only has one significant figure, which is what the question is asking for. Right? So 78 to one significant figure is 80. Now 11.6. The first significant figure is 1, so I'm drawing my vertical line after the first significant figure. I'm checking my second significant figure, which is just a 1. So that means that the first significant figure stays the same, and 11.6 to one significant figure is 10. All right, so in this number, there's only one significant figure because zeros at the end do not count. And in 391, I'll do 391 up here. 391 to one significant figure. So after my first significant figure, which is 3, I'm going to check the second significant figure. The second significant figure is a 9, which is greater, is 5 or more, which means we have to round the first significant figure up to a 4, and we put zeros in for the rest. So it's going to be 400 to one significant figure. All right. The 9 and the 1 drop to zeros, because if there was a 9 and a 1 there, that would be to 3 significant figures, which wouldn't make sense. We only want one significant figure. So after we've sorted the first number out, you fill the rest in with zeros. So it's going to be 80 times 10 divided by 400. So 80 times 10 is 800, and 800 divided by 400 is equal to 2. Question 10. Now, these are some algebra questions. So it wants us firstly to simplify 3a plus a. Well, let's write this out in full. So 3a means there are 3 a's, which is the same as a plus a plus a. That's 3a. And then we're adding another a. So we've got 3 a's and we're adding another a, then we have 4 a's. So the answer would be 4a. Part B is asking us to simplify b times c. Now, in algebra, we don't write our multiplication signs out. Okay? So instead of writing the multiplication sign out, you just write the two letters beside each other. So b times c is the same as bc. We just get rid of the multiplication sign. We don't write it in algebra, and instead we put the letters beside each other. That means multiplication. bc means b times c. Part C is asking us to expand this bracket. We've been doing that on Friday, and we're going to do some more practice this week. But let me draw out my grid for expanding brackets. So we've got a multiplication sign in the corner. The number, or the term outside the bracket, goes on the left-hand side, which is the 2. And the 2 terms inside the bracket go on top, on the top row. There we go, D and positive 3. Now all we have to do is multiply the number on the left-hand side by the two individual terms in the columns. So we got 2 times d is 2d, and 2 times 3 is plus 6. Now these two boxes gives us the answer, so it's going to be 2d plus 6 is my final answer. 2d plus 6 is the correct answer. The reason why we can't simplify that further is because we've got a d term, 2d, and just a normal number. We can't combine these because they do not look the same. If it was 2d plus 6d, you could combine it to make 8d, but here it's 2d plus 6, so you can't combine these because one's a d term and one's a normal number. So that is the final answer. Part D is asking us to factorize 5x plus 10. Now factorizing is actually the opposite of expanding brackets. So let me show you how you do this. We still draw our grid exactly the same way as we do with expanding brackets. But this time we're factorizing, we start in the middle. So where your answer comes from the middle in expanding brackets, in factorizing you start in the middle. So you write your 5x in one box and you write your plus 10 in another. Now you have to ask yourself, is there any number I can divide both of these terms by? And we want to find the highest number we can divide both terms by. Well, we can divide, let's do the factors of 5 and the factors of 10, that helps. So you can get 5 by doing 1 times 5, and that's all the factors of 5. You can't have any more. And the factors of 10, you can get 10 by doing 1 times 10 or 2 times 5. And that's the only ways you can get 10. So the highest factor for both of these is 5. Basically what that means is I can divide both of these terms by 5. So let's take a 5 out. So the number that you can divide both terms by comes out to the left-hand side, and we've discovered it's 5. Now we have to ask ourselves, 5 multiplied by what is 5x? Well, 5 times x is 5x, and then 5 times what is 10? Well, 5 times 2 plus 2 is 10. And then the numbers around the outside are your final answer, factorizing. So the 5 goes outside the bracket, and the x plus 2 goes inside the bracket. And that's how you factorize using the grid method. So the number on the left-hand side, in the same way as expanding brackets questions, the number on the left-hand side is the number outside the bracket, and the two numbers on top, the two terms on top, go inside the bracket, like with the expanding brackets question as well. Question 11 is another expanding brackets question, so it's good practice. So again, we're going to draw our grid method out. Multiplication sign in the corner. Now the 3 is outside the bracket, so it goes on the left-hand side. And then we have 2x in the first term in the bracket, and 5 is the second term in the bracket. 3 times 2x, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and then you've got x on the end. And 3 times 5 is plus 15, and our answer is in the middle of the grid here. So the final answer is 6x plus 15. I cannot simplify this because you've got an x term and a number. You can't combine them if the terms look different. So that's the final answer.